So imagine holding the keys to an asset that has literally been gaining thousands of dollars in value every single year.
Right, like the absolute cornerstone of your net worth.
Exactly. But now, imagine realizing that the absolute smartest financial move you can make with that prize asset is to take a deliberate discount just to get rid of it by Friday.
Wow, yeah, it sounds completely counterintuitive when you put it like that.
I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
But welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're taking you straight into a highly specific, incredibly high-stakes scenario, which is navigating the sale of real estate during a divorce.
Yeah, and we are extracting the absolute most crucial nuggets of insight from a really comprehensive guide. This was published on March 26th, 2026 by a firm right down in Sarasota, Florida called Sell House Fast Cash.
And it's a scenario that, fundamentally changes the entire nature of property.
Oh, absolutely, because we are no longer just looking at square footage or lot sizes or neighborhood comps. We're looking at the messy, complex untangling of shared lives.
Yeah, the stakes here, both financial and emotional, they are just at their absolute peak.
Right. And the ultimate mission we're exploring today is how separating couples can equitably and, frankly, efficiently secure a fresh start. Without those lingering legal and financial attachments that can drag the whole process out for agonizing years.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the way I look at it, the marital home in a divorce is basically a massive anchor.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. Like, if you know how to operate the winch, it can keep you safely moored while you figure out your next steps, shielding you from the storm.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to detach it properly, or if you let the chains get tangled up in arguments, that exact same anchor is just going to drag you both underwater.
That is exactly the dynamic at play here. I mean, you're managing an incredibly heavy asset. And before anyone can decide exactly how to detach that anchor, we really have to look at the specific legal waters we're floating in.
Yeah, you definitely can't just look at this in a vacuum.
Right. No. In this case, we're operating within the legal framework of Florida and dealing with the very specific local market pressures of Sarasota.
Right, because you can't just slap a for sale sign on the lawn, write a catchy description, and call it a day, especially not when the courts are heavily involved.
Precisely. So Florida operates under a legal framework known as equitable distribution. Now, the critical distinction here, and this is where so many people get completely tripped up, is the word equitable.
Right.
The courts are striving to divide marital assets fairly, but fair does not automatically mean a perfect, clean 50-50 split.
And that is a huge misconception. I mean, I think a lot of people just assume everything gets sliced right down the middle like a pizza.
Yeah.
You take half the bank account, I take half the house.
Yeah, but there is a crucial rule here about the marital home that completely shifts how you have to think about this asset.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, the home is subject to division if it was purchased, or, and this is key, if it appreciated in value during the course of the marriage.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Even if only one person's name is on it?
Yes. That applies regardless of whose name is actually sitting on the deed. It completely upends the traditional concept of ownership.
Oh, wow. So how does that actually play out mechanically?
Let's look at it. You could have owned the house 5 years before you even met your spouse. Your name could be the only one on the mortgage. You could be the only one on the title.
Okay.
But if the value of that home went up by, say, $200,000 during the years you were married?
Whether that's just natural market appreciation or like you use joint funds to renovate the kitchen.
Exactly.
Right.
Either way, that $200,000 increase in value is generally considered a marital asset. You have to account for that appreciation in the final distribution.
So you essentially owe your soon-to-be ex a portion of that gain, even though it was your house first.
Yes, exactly.
Which brings us to the Sarasota squeeze. Because we are looking at a landscape with very dynamic, sometimes volatile shifts in property values down there.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, you have the current reality of Florida real estate.
Right.
I mean, skyrocketing homeowner insurance premiums, heavily fluctuating property taxes. Every time the wind blows a little too hard, insurance rates seem to spike.
Yeah, and those local compounding factors are exactly why accurate and timely valuation is absolutely critical right now.
Because it's expensive to just hold on to the place.
Exactly. When a couple is separating, every single month they hold on to that property, they are just hemorrhaging resources. Let's break down the actual bleed.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, you have the ongoing mortgage payments, which you're now trying to cover while setting up a second household. You have the funding for inevitable repairs. You have the standard utility costs, all compounded by those rising insurance premiums we just talked about.
So you're essentially burning capital to maintain a physical structure that neither of you plans to keep long-term anyway?
Precisely.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. Let's say the Sarasota market is dipping slightly right now, or, interest rates are acting weird. Isn't there a logic to holding on for a bit?
How so?
Well, if you know the house might be worth 10 or 15% more in a year, isn't trying to force a sale during a divorce just playing a dangerous game of financial chicken with your ex?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, holding costs almost always negate any potential gains from waiting out the market, especially in a divorce scenario.
Really? Almost always.
Yeah, because the holding costs aren't just financial, they are deeply psychological and logistical. Every time a property tax bill arrives or the HVAC system needs a repair, the couple has to negotiate who pays for it.
Oh, right. And that requires continuous communication.
Yes, and consensus during a period when consensus is notoriously difficult to achieve. I mean, if the AC breaks in July in Florida, you can't wait a month to negotiate who pays the technician.
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
The sheer friction of maintaining the asset, plus the thousands of dollars burned in carrying costs, almost always outweighs a marginal future increase in the sale price.
Which perfectly explains why couples are forced into making a rapid decision. Because these holding costs are draining their accounts daily, they essentially have three levers they can pull regarding the marital home.
Exactly. And each one comes with varying levels of financial and emotional tethering. Let's start with the first lever, which is the buyout.
Okay, the classic buyout.
Right. We all know how it works in theory. One spouse keeps the house and pays the other for their share of the equity. But let's look at why this is failing in the current market.
Mechanics-wise, right?
Yeah, mechanically, this requires the purchasing spouse to secure financing or refinance the existing mortgage entirely in their own name to remove the departing spouse's liability.
And here's the 2026 interest rate trap.
Yeah.
You're taking a mortgage that was likely secured years ago when rates were sitting pretty at around 3%.
Yep.
And it was approved based on two incomes.
Exactly.
Now you're trying to refinance that exact same balance, plus pulling out extra cash to pay off your ex at today's significantly higher rates entirely on a newly single income.
It's brutal.
It's an incredible amount of financial strain. For most people, taking on that kind of debt right as their household income gets cut in half is basically financial suicide.
It really is. It forces many people to become incredibly house poor the exact moment they're trying to start over.
So if a buyout is mathematically impossible for most, what's the next option?
Couples often look at the second lever, the deferred sale or co-ownership. This is when a couple chooses to maintain joint ownership until a specific milestone occurs.
Like what kind of milestone?
A very common example in the text is deciding to wait until a child graduates from a local Sarasota high school just to minimize the disruption to their daily life.
Okay, I have to jump in here. The intention behind that is obviously pure. You want stability for the kids?
Right, of course.
But co-owning a house with your ex for 3 or 4 years, that is like trying to run a three-legged race when you both want to go in completely opposite directions.
That is a great way to put it.
You're tied together at the ankle trying to move forward with your new life, but every single step requires intense coordination with someone you're fundamentally trying to separate from.
That analogy perfectly captures the liability friction. You are completely tethered, and the friction there isn't just awkwardness at parent-teacher conferences. It's tangible financial liability.
Because path 2 keeps both parties legally exposed for years.
Yes. It requires an immense level of ongoing cooperation. Like, who pays when the roof suddenly leaks? What if one spouse loses their job 6 months from now and can't cover their half of the property tax?
Oh, man, yeah. If they default, the other spouse's credit score takes the hit.
Exactly. The potential for catastrophic financial conflict is simply extended for the duration of the co-ownership.
Which leaves the final and most definitive lever to pull, which is selling outright. You sell the house, you divide the proceeds according to your legal settlement, and you are done.
It cleanly ends the shared financial obligations. It is the definitive cut. It converts a shared, highly illiquid asset with ongoing maintenance costs into liquid capital that can actually be divided mathematically.
But, and this is a big but, once a couple agrees that selling outright is the smartest move, they hit an entirely new wall of friction.
They absolutely do.
Right, because how do you actually execute the sale of a house together when you can barely agree on who gets to keep the good coffee maker?
This introduces the concept of the traditional market trap. Selling a home on the open market is not a passive event. It is a highly labor-intensive process.
Oh, it's exhausting.
You have to interview and agree on an agent. You have to execute a massive deep cleaning. You have to make necessary repairs just to get the house ready for listing photos.
Not to mention staging the interior, which means negotiating whose furniture stays and whose goes into a storage unit.
Yes. And then you have to constantly vacate the premises on Sunday afternoons for open houses.
Doing that while navigating the emotional fallout of a divorce is practically a recipe for disaster. Coordinating these tasks just heightens conflict dramatically.
Complete.
You're suddenly fighting over listing prices. You're arguing over whether it's worth spending $5,000 to repaint the living room because the realtor said the current color is too aggressive.
Or fighting about who left the kitchen messy right before a scheduled Tuesday evening showing.
Right. And we must factor in the specific behavioral economics of the Sarasota market right now. Buyers browsing traditional listings in this area are ruthless.
They really are. They expect pristine, move-in ready conditions. If the marital home is suffering from deferred maintenance, say a roof that is clearly nearing the end of its lifespan, or a completely outdated HVAC system,
It is going to sit on the market.
it's going to sit, and the longer it sits, the worse the offers get. Extended days on the market attract low-ball offers with extremely demanding contingencies.
And there's a really uncomfortable truth about the open market here that we need to highlight for you. Buyers and their real estate agents will actively use a seller's divorce as negotiation leverage.
It's a harsh reality of the industry. It's purely transactional psychology. If buyers catch wind that a divorce is the primary reason for the sale, and they almost always do, either through agent chatter or just, reading the room, they immediately assume there is a desperation to liquidate.
They assume you just want out.
Exactly. They assume the sellers are financially stretched and emotionally exhausted. So they submit offers significantly below market value, banking on the sellers being too tired to fight back or negotiate.
They literally smell blood in the water. Which brings us to the alternative, which is the direct cash solution offered by entities like Sell House Fast Cash.
Right.
The premise here is bypassing that entire traditional market trap. You skip the preparation entirely. No deep cleaning, no staging, no open market friction, no vacating for showings.
And crucially, no exploitation of your personal circumstances by retail buyers. You completely remove the labor-intensive preparation phase. The property is assessed exactly as it stands.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to push back on this pretty hard.
Go for it.
Let's be real. A cash buyer is a business. They're not a charity. They are going to take a cut of the potential equity. That could be 10, 15, maybe 20% off the absolute top of the market retail value.
Sure.
That is tens of thousands of dollars. So if traditional buyers are using your divorce as leverage to get a discount, aren't these cash buyers just a different type of vulture? Why would I willingly throw away my wealth right when I'm having my household income?
What's fascinating here is how we define wealth and value in the context of a crisis. We have to look at the concept of the time value of emotional peace.
The time value of emotional peace. Okay, explain that.
Yes, taking a direct cash offer means you are sacrificing the theoretical absolute maximum retail price you might get if you fully renovated, perfectly staged, and waited 6 months for the ideal open market buyer.
Right, you're taking a hit.
You are absolutely taking a financial haircut on the gross price. But this model acts much more as a functional utility rather than an opportunistic vulture.
How so? Because, I mean, a haircut is still a haircut.
Because the discount is essentially a quantified fee paid to eliminate immense legal and psychological costs. Their business model isn't based on exploiting your specific emotional crisis. It's based on providing speed and certainty as a service.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Think about the math here. If you spend $20,000 on repairs, pay $30,000 in holding costs over 6 months of arguments, pay 6% in realtor commissions, and pay your divorce attorneys for 10 extra billable hours spent arguing over the listing price.
Oh man, yeah, that maximum retail value shrinks dramatically.
Exactly. By going direct, you are trading that theoretical maximum for the guaranteed immediate liquidation of an as-is asset. You are buying back your peace of mind, stopping the attorney fees, and halting the carrying costs immediately.
So you're essentially paying a premium to fast forward through the worst part of your life.
That's a great way to summarize it.
And if bypassing that traditional market is the route you choose to preserve your sanity and stop the financial bleed, you really need to know the actual mechanics of getting it done safely.
The guide makes a really astute comparison here. They compare selling a divorce property to selling an inherited property.
Oh, that makes sense.
In both cases, swift, decisive action is what actually preserves the asset's value. Prolonging the sale inevitably extends the timeline of the emotional process itself. The faster the house is sold, the sooner both individuals can secure new housing and begin rebuilding completely independent financial foundations.
So let's run through the actionable steps for executing this clean break. Step 1 is simply agreeing on the method. Both parties have to look at the math, look at the emotional toll, and consent to bypass the open market and sell directly for cash.
Right. And then step 2 is determining the distribution. And this is crucial. This happens before the sale.
Before, not after.
Exactly. You work with your respective attorneys or mediators to outline exactly, mathematically, how the proceeds will be split upon the final closing.
Got it. Step 3 is request and evaluation. You reach out to the buyer to schedule a brief, non-intrusive walkthrough of the property. No staging, no fixing the drywall.
None of that. Then step 4 is reviewing the offer together. You are looking for the distinct absence of hidden fees, staging costs, or commission structures. The number on the paper needs to be the actual number.
And finally, step 5 is closing on your timeline. Because there are no traditional banks underwriting a mortgage for the buyer, there is no risk of financing falling through at the 11th hour.
Yeah, that certainty is huge. You can select a closing date that aligns seamlessly with your court deadlines or your individual moving schedules.
Okay, but I have a highly practical question about the money here. Because when things are contentious, trust is absolutely zero.
Right.
If I'm selling a house with my soon-to-be ex, and we agree to a cash offer, how do I know the buyer doesn't just wire the funds into my ex's bank account and the money magically disappears before I ever see my half?
This raises an important question, and honestly, it is arguably the most common fear separating couples have regarding liquidity. The answer lies in the mechanics of the title company and the escrow process.
Okay, how does that mechanism actually work?
Let me explain. The title company acts as a legally bound, neutral third party. Once the home closes, the buyer's cash does not go to either spouse. It goes directly into an escrow account controlled by the title company.
So it's essentially a legally locked vault.
Exactly. Neither you nor your spouse has the key to that vault. The only thing that unlocks it is the legal settlement document.
Ah.
The title company's legal mandate supersedes either spouse's individual bank instructions. They are legally required to disperse those funds exactly as dictated by the court or the mediation agreement.
So it turns a highly emotional, fearful conflict into an emotionless algorithm.
That's exactly right. The money is wired directly to each spouse according to the specific percentages outlined in the binding documents. The cash never sits in a joint account where one person can just drain it.
That is a massive relief. It takes the trust issue completely off the table. The guide also covers a couple of really critical FAQs that we should definitely hit. First, can you actually sell the marital home before the divorce is officially finalized by the judge?
Yes, and many couples strategically choose to do exactly this.
Really?
Yeah, transforming the physical property into liquid cash makes the final settlement negotiations much, much easier. Liquid cash is infinitely easier to divide than a house with a leaking roof and a disputed appraisal value. But again, both spouses must legally agree to execute the sale.
And the second FAQ, what if one spouse simply refuses to pay for repairs before listing? We talked about the friction of consensus earlier.
Right. If one refuses to contribute to fixes, a traditional listing becomes practically impossible because the house won't pass retail inspections.
It's just a stalemate.
Yeah. This is where the direct sale eliminates the issue entirely. The property is purchased exactly as it is. There are zero out-of-pocket expenses required for repairs, which means there is absolutely nothing left to argue over regarding the condition of the home.
It just completely removes the battlefield.
Yeah.
Now for some context for you listening, the firm providing this roadmap, Sell House Fast Cash, is a family-run operation right there in Sarasota, Florida.
They handle all sorts of burdensome property situations, probate, foreclosure, and of course, divorce.
Yeah. If you are ever in that specific local market and find yourself needing to bypass the traditional systems, their contact is 941-842-0369. It is always good to know what specific resources exist in your area before you actually need to pull that lever.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? We've covered the intricate legal frameworks of equitable distribution, the compounding financial bleed of market dynamics, and frankly, the psychological toll of trying to run a three-legged race with someone you're separating from.
It's a lot to navigate.
It really is. Whether you're navigating a split yourself, prepping to advise a friend who is deep in the trenches, or you just want to understand the underlying mechanics of real estate asset liquidation, the key takeaway is clear. Transforming a complex, emotionally charged physical dispute into a streamlined liquid transaction is the ultimate shortcut to a fresh start.
It really comes down to recognizing the tools available to you and understanding the true cost of friction.
Exactly. In an era where we are constantly overwhelmed with information and forced into traditional friction-heavy systems like the open market real estate game,
Mm.
understanding how to bypass those systems in times of crisis is an incredibly powerful tool.
It really
You
is.
don't have to play a game if the rules are actively destroying your peace of mind and your bank account.
It fundamentally changes your approach to conflict resolution. But reviewing all these mechanics, the cash offers, the escrow vaults, the legal distributions, it leaves you with a deeper question to ponder.
Look at that.
We spend so much time worrying about the financial division of the physical space, the walls, the roof, the HVAC system. We hyperfixate on the math. But it leaves you wondering, does liquidating the marital home actually erase the emotional equity we've built into it, or does true separation require a psychological closing date that no title company can ever facilitate?